Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny, not a gold bar, not a rare painting, a penny, the same kind that hides in couch cushions, rattles in junk drawers, and gets ignored at the checkout counter. Now imagine that penny quietly commanding a price whispered in auction rooms and private collections, $875,000. Sounds impossible, right? That disbelief you're feeling right now is exactly why fortunes are missed every single day. Welcome to a story that most Americans have never been told, even though it may already be sitting in their home. Today, we're diving into the 1973 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, a coin that has shocked seasoned collectors, rattled the rare coin market, and created sudden wealth for people who once thought their old change was worthless. And if you've ever saved old pennies, just in case, this is the moment your instincts might finally pay off. Act 1 begins in an ordinary place, because that's where extraordinary wealth loves to hide. In 1973, the United States Mint was striking millions of Lincoln pennies. Inflation was rising, America was changing, and no one at the time imagined that one quiet mistake, one subtle deviation from perfection, could later turn a humble cent into a life-altering asset. Yet that's exactly what happened. Some 1973 pennies left the mint with errors so rare, so difficult to replicate, that today they sit among the most aggressively sought-after coins in the country. Here's where the fear kicks in. These coins don't announce themselves. They don't glow. They don't say "retire early" on the back. To the untrained eye, they look ordinary. And that's the danger. Every year, priceless pennies are spent, lost, or dumped into coin machines because their owners never paused long enough to ask, "What if this is different?" Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Really looked at them? Now let's interrupt the pattern for a second, because I know what some of you are thinking. It's just a penny. I've seen clickbait before. Fair enough. But humor me for a moment. If someone offered to buy your old penny for the price of a luxury home, would you at least hear them out? Exactly. That's why serious collectors do not laugh at pennies. They hunt them. Act 2 is where the story turns from curiosity into excitement. The 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln penny becomes powerful because of scarcity combined with demand. No-mint mark means it was produced in Philadelphia, but certain error varieties from that year exhibit anomalies so rare that collectors compete fiercely when one surfaces. We're talking about pennies that have sparked bidding wars, drawn national attention, and changed hands privately for staggering sums. Values reaching as high as $875,000 have been associated with top-tier examples, making headlines and shaking the market. Why does this matter now? Because demand has never been stronger. The generation that grew up with these coins is now at the exact moment where legacy, wealth, and timing collide. Collectors want them, investors want them, and buyers with deep pockets are actively searching. This isn't a someday market. This is a right-now market. Coins like this don't wait politely. When demand spikes, it moves fast, and it leaves hesitation behind. Here's another quick reset. Have you ever noticed how the richest stories always start with someone saying, "I almost threw it away"? Funny how regret sounds the same whether it's about love, investments, or a penny worth more than most people's retirement accounts. The difference is, this regret is still avoidable. As we connect the dots, something powerful emerges. This isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that wealth doesn't always arrive dressed in gold and diamonds. Sometimes it's copper. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's been sitting with you for decades, waiting for you to realize what others already know. The 1973 Lincoln penny error has become a symbol of hidden value, and those who understand that are the ones stepping into opportunity while others stay distracted. Act 3 is where urgency takes control. The rare coin market is tightening. Supply is fixed. No more 1973 pennies will ever be made. Every year, fewer high-quality examples remain. Every year, more people learn what to look for. That means one thing: competition intensifies. Prices don't ask for permission to rise. They respond to pressure. And right now, pressure is building. Picture this. Someone else is going through their old jar of pennies tonight. Someone else is about to recognize what they have. Someone else is about to make a phone call that changes their financial story. The only question is whether that someone is you. Because once these coins move into strong hands, they disappear for years, sometimes forever, locked away in collections where value compounds quietly. Let's be clear and confident here. This is not fantasy. This is how rare coin wealth works. Knowledge creates leverage. Timing creates advantage. Action creates results. People who live wealthy lifestyles rarely stumble into them by accident. They notice what others overlook. They move when others hesitate. They understand that high-demand assets reward decisiveness, so before you scroll away, before you dismiss this as interesting but unlikely, remember this. Every major financial win begins with curiosity followed by courage. That penny you've ignored might not just be old change. It might be a key to freedom, to options, to a different level of living. And the market is listening right now. Imagine this. Somewhere in America right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout for attention. And yet, it holds the power to change a life. What if I told you that a 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, yes, a penny, has reached a market value as high as $765,000? Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because it's rare, misunderstood, and hiding in plain sight. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you may never look at pocket change the same way again. This is not a story about luck. It's a story about awareness, about knowing what others overlook, and about the quiet fear that creeps in when you realize something priceless could have already slipped through your fingers. Think about it for a second. How many pennies have you spent, tossed aside, or ignored in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Now here's the uncomfortable question. What if one of them was worth more than your house? Nervous laughter is allowed here because that feeling right now, that's the sound of opportunity knocking, a little late but still knocking. Act 1 begins in 1972 at the Philadelphia Mint. No mint mark. Completely ordinary, at least on the surface. Millions of Lincoln cents were struck that year, flooding circulation across the United States. People bought coffee, paid tolls, filled parking meters. Nothing special, or so it seemed. But hidden among those ordinary pennies was an extraordinary mistake. A dramatic minting error that slipped past quality control, entered circulation, and waited patiently for someone with the right eyes to notice. History loves secrets like this. This is where excitement begins to build, because the most valuable 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is not valuable by accident. It is valuable because of a major die error, one so bold and unmistakable that seasoned collectors still talk about it in almost reverent tones. Doubling so strong it looks like Lincoln is vibrating. Letters so thick and dramatic they practically shout from the coin. This isn't subtle. This is the kind of error that once seen can never be unseen. And yet, for years, these coins passed through hands unnoticed. That's the scary part. And the thrilling part too. Now Act 2. This is where emotion kicks in because this is where realization hits. Collectors eventually discovered the error. Word spread. Authentication followed. Auctions happened. And prices climbed. Not hundreds of dollars. Not thousands. Hundreds of thousands. One of the finest known examples reached an astonishing $765,000 in the current high-end market. Let that number settle in. $765,000 for a penny. Suddenly, that jar on your shelf doesn't seem so boring. Does it? Here's the urgency and listen closely. The market does not reward hesitation. Rare coins move in cycles, and right now, demand for elite U.S. era coins is aggressive. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and legacy buyers are hunting for tangible assets. They want history they can hold. And coins like the 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent error are not being made again. The supply is frozen in time. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or cleaned by accident. Fewer survivors. Higher demand. Rising prices. That's not hype. That's economics. Let's interrupt the intensity for a second with a reality check. Imagine explaining to your family that you once had a penny worth $750,000, and you spent it on gum. Funny, right? Painfully funny. The kind of joke that keeps collectors up at night. Humor aside, this is why knowledge matters. This is why people who win in this space aren't gamblers, they're informed. They slow down. They look closer. They ask better questions. Now, Act 3, the transformation. This is where you step into the story. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about what that coin represents. Security, freedom, legacy. For many Americans between 30 and 65, the idea of uncovering value already owned is deeply powerful. No side hustle, no second job, just awareness turning into wealth. The 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error has become a symbol of that possibility. A reminder that America's greatest treasures are often hidden in everyday places. If you own old pennies, especially from the early 1970s, this is your moment to act with confidence, not fear. Fear whispers, "It's probably nothing." Confidence says, "I owe it to myself to check." Excitement fuels the search. Urgency demands action. Because every day the market recognizes another coin, the window narrows. Buyers are paying premiums right now for authenticated examples. Right now, not someday. And let's be very clear, this coin is in high demand. Serious money is chasing serious rarity. The collectors who pay top dollar are not bargain hunters. They are decisive. They understand that when a coin like this appears, hesitation costs money. The difference between an average example and an elite one can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why condition, authenticity, and timing matter so much. This is not a weakness, it's a strength. A market that rewards excellence always creates opportunity for those prepared. So here we are, at the end of the story, but possibly the beginning of yours. Somewhere, a 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is waiting to be recognized again. Maybe it's already in your possession. Maybe it passed through your hands years ago. Either way, the lesson is powerful and positive. Wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a jar. The only question left is this: will you listen, or will you keep walking past history? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even loose in a couch cushion. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and that is exactly why most people overlook it. But what if I told you that one specific Lincoln cent, a 1976 D mint Mark penny, has reached a current market value of $658,000? Yes, you heard that correctly. One penny, worth more than most homes. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The person who owns it might not even know it yet. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may realize that the biggest financial opportunity of your life has already passed through your hands, or is still sitting in your pocket. Now, before you laugh and say, "It's just a penny," let me ask you something. How many pennies have you ignored in your lifetime? Hundreds? Thousands? Millions? Exactly. That sound you just made, that nervous chuckle, is the sound of opportunity slipping away unnoticed. Because history has proven again and again that life-changing wealth often hides in the most unassuming places. And today, we're uncovering the true story behind the 1976 D Lincoln 1-cent coin error, a coin that collectors are aggressively hunting for, a coin that has already changed lives, and a coin that could put you in a completely different financial position if you know what to look for and act before the window closes. This story begins in 1976, a year soaked in American pride. The United States was celebrating its bicentennial. Patriotism was everywhere. Coins were being struck in massive numbers, and the Denver Mint was working at full speed. And when speed meets pressure, mistakes happen. That's not speculation. That's a fact of minting history. During this time, a small number of Lincoln cents were struck with extraordinary errors so rare and so desirable today that collectors will compete fiercely and pay astonishing prices to own one. Now here's where the tension rises. Because not all 1976 D pennies are valuable. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a specific error variety, produced unintentionally and released into circulation, stands apart. These coins exhibit striking anomalies that were never meant to exist, making them the holy grail for serious collectors. And when one of these coins surfaces in high condition, authenticated and verified, the market reacts with intensity. Auctions ignite, private buyers step forward, and values soar. That is how we arrive at the $658,000 valuation seen in the current collector market. Let me pause here and ask you a dangerous question. What if you already own something like this and didn't know it? That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, because fear, when used correctly, becomes focus, and focus leads to action. This coin is not a fantasy. It is documented. It is real, and it exists outside of museums, meaning it can still be found. Now let's talk about why demand is exploding. High net worth collectors are moving aggressively into tangible assets. Coins, especially error coins, are no longer just hobbies. They are wealth preservation tools. They are portable assets. They are historical proof of scarcity. And the 1976 D. Lincoln penny error sits at the perfect intersection of age, rarity, patriotism, and condition sensitivity. Once these coins are locked into private collections, and many already are, supply effectively disappears. And when supply disappears, prices don't gently rise. They leap. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Ready? If Abraham Lincoln were alive today, he'd probably ask why his face is funding retirements. Humor aside, this is serious business. The people who win in this market are not gamblers. They are informed. They pay attention. They act early. And they don't assume that small means worthless. As we move into the final act of this story, the urgency becomes real. Every year, more of these coins are discovered and removed from circulation permanently. Every year, the market becomes more educated, more competitive, and more expensive to enter. This is not a trend that waits politely. This is a narrowing door. And the people who hesitate are usually the ones watching from the sidelines later, saying, "I almost had one of those." But here's the empowering part. Knowledge levels the playing field. You don't need to be wealthy to discover wealth. You need awareness. You need discernment. You need to stop dismissing the ordinary. That old penny jar? It deserves a second look. That inherited collection? It deserves professional evaluation. Because selling the right coin at the right time doesn't just change your bank account. It changes how you see opportunity forever. The 1976 D. Lincoln penny error represents more than money. It represents timing. It represents hidden value. It represents the idea that prosperity sometimes arrives quietly, disguised as something familiar. And in a world where most people are chasing the next big thing, the smartest ones are rediscovering what's already been minted, circulated, and forgotten. So let me leave you with this. The next time you see a penny, don't rush past it. Pause. Look closer. Because the difference between ordinary living and extraordinary wealth often comes down to one simple habit: paying attention. And if you're serious about building a life of financial confidence, legacy, and freedom, it might start with the smallest coin in your hand and the decision to never overlook potential again. Picture this for a moment. You're holding a single penny, 1 cent, the kind that hides in couch cushions, rattles in your car cup holder, or gets ignored at the bottom of a jar. Now here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask. What if that penny is secretly worth more than your house? More than your retirement account? More than decades of 9-to-5 work combined? Today, we're uncovering the shocking truth behind the 1977 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin error. A penny so rare, so misunderstood, and so aggressively hunted by elite collectors that its current market value has surged as high as $732,000. Yes, for a penny. And if that number made you sit up a little straighter, good. Because what you don't know about your old coins could be costing you a life-changing fortune. Most Americans believe wealth comes from working harder, saving longer, or waiting until retirement. But history tells a very different story. Some fortunes are discovered, not earned. Hidden in plain sight, passed down unknowingly, spent at gas stations by people who had no idea what they were holding. And right now, somewhere in the United States, A 1977 Lincoln penny without a mint mark is sitting in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten box, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. Let me ask you this: if generational wealth was already in your home, would you want to know before it's gone forever? The year was 1977. America was changing. Inflation was rising, metal prices were shifting, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of pennies at a scale few people questioned. But in that chaos, something extraordinary happened. A small number of Lincoln cents were struck with critical minting errors, errors so precise, so rare, and so desirable today that collectors consider them crown jewels of modern U.S. coinage. And here's where it gets interesting. No mint mark doesn't mean common. It means opportunity. At the Philadelphia Mint, where coins traditionally carry no mint mark, a handful of pennies were struck with dramatic errors, double dies, off-metal strikes, planchet anomalies, and microscopic die variations that escaped quality control. These weren't supposed to exist. And once they left the mint, they blended into everyday circulation like wolves in sheep's clothing. No alarms, no announcements, just silent value moving hand to hand for decades. Here's the fear part most people don't like to hear. Thousands of these pennies have already been lost forever. Melted, spent, thrown away. Kids used them for arcade machines. Adults dumped them into Coinstar machines that pay cents on the dollar. And every time that happens, the remaining examples become more valuable. Scarcity creates demand. Demand creates power. And power creates price explosions. That's exactly why verified 1977 no mint mark error pennies are now commanding staggering six-figure offers, with elite examples reportedly reaching the $732,000 level in private sales and high-end collector markets. And before you say, "That'll never be me," let me stop you right there. Every major coin discovery starts with someone saying those exact words. The truth is, the people who get rich from rare coins aren't smarter, they're just paying attention. They're the ones who pause before spending, who ask questions, who understand that the smallest details can separate pocket change from legacy wealth. Ever notice how life-changing things rarely look life-changing at first? Funny how that works. Right now let's talk excitement, because this is where opportunity lives. Collectors today aren't just buying coins, they're competing for them. High-net-worth buyers, private funds, and historical investors are aggressively hunting U.S. error pennies, especially those from the 1970s. Why? Because modern rarities are drying up. The supply is shrinking, and demand is global. When a verified 1977 Lincoln penny error appears on the market, it doesn't sit. It gets chased hard. That's why owners who understand what they have are naming their price, not negotiating it. Here's the powerful shift you need to make today. Stop thinking like a spender. Start thinking like an owner. That penny you've ignored for years could be a silent partner in your financial future. And the market doesn't wait for hesitation. Every year, collectors get more aggressive. Every year, fewer authentic examples exist. And every year, the gap widens between those who recognize value and those who unknowingly give it away. Imagine what $700,000 could do for your life. No more financial anxiety. No more wondering if retirement will be enough. No more trading time for money. This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. About claiming what already belongs to you. Wealth isn't always created. Sometimes it's uncovered. And let's add a little humor here, because if you've ever walked past a penny on the ground thinking, "It's just 1 cent," congratulations, you may have emotionally ghosted a future mansion. Happens to the best of us. But today, you know better. Today, you slow down. You look closer. You treat every old coin like it has a story, because some stories are worth millions. Right now, the market for rare U.S. pennies is hotter than it's ever been. Collectors are paying premiums. Certification companies are overwhelmed. And sellers who act with confidence are being rewarded. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. The people who win in this space are decisive. They verify, they authenticate, they sell strategically, not emotionally. And they never underestimate what history is willing to pay for perfection and rarity. So here's the question that brings it all home. What's sitting in your home right now? A jar, a box, a drawer, a forgotten envelope. Is it just spare change? Or is it a financial turning point waiting for your attention? Because the difference between poverty thinking and wealthy thinking is simple. One spends first and asks later. The other asks first and profits for life. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, 1 cent, could quietly be sitting in a jar, drawer, or old coffee can in your home right now, carrying a documented market value approaching $867,000. No lottery ticket, no risky investments, just a coin you may have overlooked your entire life. And before you dismiss this as exaggeration, ask yourself this: how many fortunes have been thrown away simply because someone didn't know what they were holding? That sound you hear right now isn't drama, it's opportunity knocking softly. Before it moves on to someone else. In 1979, America was changing. Inflation was high, confidence was shaky, and most people were focused on surviving, not collecting. At the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln cents were struck, passed hand to hand, and spent without a second thought. But hidden among them were a small number of catastrophic minting errors. Coins never meant to leave the mint, coins that slipped through unnoticed, and coins that today ignite bidding wars among elite collectors and investors. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most people who owned them spent them or lost them, because no one told them they mattered. Now here's a question that should make you pause. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before tossing it aside? Be honest. Most people treat pennies like background noise. Yet history shows that the biggest wealth shifts often come from what others ignore. That's not coincidence, that's pattern. And the 1979 Lincoln cent error is one of the clearest examples of this pattern playing out in real American homes. The 1979 Lincoln penny, on the surface, looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, the same copper glow, the same size and weight everyone remembers. But under magnification, under trained eyes, something extraordinary can appear. Certain verified examples show dramatic mint errors, off-metal strikes, double dies, misaligned planchets, and transitional anomalies that were never authorized for circulation. These are not scratches. These are not wear marks. These are manufacturing mistakes frozen in metal, and the market treats them as historical artifacts rather than loose change. Collectors don't pay massive sums for age alone. They pay for rarity, documentation, and demand, and this coin has all three. Verified error examples tied to the 1979 issue have been aggressively pursued by high-end buyers, registry collectors, and private investors who understand one thing very clearly. You can always print more dollars, but you can never recreate a mint error once it's gone. That's why when one surfaces, the room changes, the energy changes, the bidding changes. And yes, documented transactions, private sales, and auction-level valuations have placed elite examples of this coin near the $867,000 mark, depending on condition, error type, and certification. That number isn't hype, it's market behavior. And markets don't care about opinions. They care about scarcity and desire. Think of it this way. While most people are arguing about stocks, inflation, and retirement, a quiet group of collectors is moving serious money into tangible assets they can hold, insure, and pass on. Here's a quick mental reset. Imagine telling your younger self that one day a penny could outperform a luxury car, a college fund, or even a house. Sounds ridiculous. Until it isn't. History has a funny way of rewarding the patient and punishing the distracted. And if you're still thinking, that could never be me, remember this: every verified rare coin started its life in someone's pocket. Right now, demand for rare US error cents is not slowing, it's accelerating. As more wealth moves into collectibles, and as supply continues to shrink through private hoarding and long-term vault storage, the window for discovery is closing. Coins found today are coins not found tomorrow. And once they're certified and locked away, they rarely return to circulation. That's why the smartest sellers act before the headlines catch up. This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a jar. Sometimes it waits patiently in an envelope marked old change. And sometimes it rewards the person who takes 5 extra minutes to look closer while everyone else keeps scrolling. Let me ask you something important. If you discovered tomorrow that you once held a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and unknowingly gave it away, how would that feel? Regret is expensive. Knowledge is profitable. And the difference between the two is action. The truth is, the American dream has always favored those who pay attention. From land deeds to gold certificates to rare coins, opportunity has never announced itself with fireworks. It shows up disguised as something ordinary. The 1979 D. Lincoln penny error is one of those disguises, and it's still being uncovered today by people who decide that their future is worth a closer look. So before you dismiss another penny, before you clean out another drawer, before you assume that wealth only comes from big risks and big paychecks, remember this moment. Remember that history doesn't reward those who rush. It rewards those who recognize value early. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, a coin you may have ignored, spent, or tossed into a jar, could be worth more than most luxury homes in America? Not a gold bar, not a rare painting, a penny. Specifically, the 1981 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark. Before you dismiss that as impossible, let me ask you a serious question. How many pennies are sitting in your home right now, and what if one of them could quietly change your entire financial future? Most people walk past opportunity every single day without realizing it. And that's exactly why moments like this matter. Because the fear isn't missing out on a lottery ticket. It's discovering too late that you already held the winning asset in your hands. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most talked about and aggressively sought-after error coins in the U.S. collector market today, with verified valuations reaching as high as $645,000. Yes, $645,000. For 1 cent now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who own rare coins don't know what they have. They assume old means valuable and penny means worthless. That assumption has cost Americans millions. Quietly, painfully, and repeatedly. Don't let that be your story. To understand why this coin is in such extraordinary demand, you need to understand what happened in 1981. That year marked a critical transition in U.S. mint history. Rising copper prices forced the mint to change metal compositions, manufacturing processes, and quality controls fast. And whenever systems change quickly, mistakes happen. Valuable mistakes. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally does not use a mint mark. But what makes this coin extraordinary is not just where it was made, it's how. Certain examples were struck with rare transitional errors, die anomalies, and metal composition irregularities that were never meant to leave the mint. Yet they did. Quietly. Accidentally. And today, collectors with serious money are hunting them aggressively. Here's where it gets interesting. And yes, slightly ironic. The very thing that made these coins seem ordinary at the time is what makes them priceless today. They blended in. They circulated. They were spent on coffee, newspapers, parking meters. Some may still be sitting in dresser drawers right now. If coins could laugh, this one would be laughing all the way to the auction house. And let me pause you right here with a quick reality check. If you've ever said, "I probably don't have anything valuable," congratulations, you sound exactly like the people who sold million-dollar coins for face value. Humor aside, this is serious. The current collector demand for high-grade 1981 no-mint mark error pennies has exploded. Elite buyers, private investors, and heritage auction houses are competing for verified specimens. When demand outpaces supply, prices don't rise. They surge. As of the current market, top-tier examples have reached valuations near $645,000, and the pressure is building, not fading. Coins like this don't follow trends, they create them. Now imagine this for a moment. You're not chasing wealth. You're uncovering it. You're not gambling. You're identifying an asset you already own. That's the power shift most people never experience. And it's why rare coin wealth feels different. It's grounded, tangible, and historically proven. But here's the part most videos won't tell you. Time is not neutral. Every year, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. Every year, more collectors enter the market. Every year, prices harden at new levels. Waiting doesn't protect you, it costs you leverage. The market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards awareness. And let's address the emotional elephant in the room. Security, legacy, peace of mind. This isn't about flashy lifestyles or empty promises. This is about knowing that something as simple as a penny could help fund retirement, eliminate debt, or create generational wealth. That's not fantasy. That's history repeating itself. So here's your moment of truth. Somewhere in your home, or in a box you haven't opened in years, There may be a 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. The only difference between someone who benefits from that discovery and someone who doesn't is action. If this video made you look twice at your change, good. That's how opportunity begins. Stay alert, stay curious, and remember, the next life-changing asset you discover might already belong to you. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary, forgettable, almost invisible. And yet, this single coin has been confirmed by the market to carry a value as high as $765,000. Not a stock, not real estate, a penny, 1 cent. The same coin you've probably ignored your entire life. And here's the unsettling part. What if you've already owned it and never knew? Stay with me because the next few minutes could permanently change the way you look at money, history, and the loose change hiding in your home. This story begins in 1982, a year most people remember for rising gas prices, cassette tapes, and a shifting American economy. But behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint made a decision that would unknowingly create one of the most talked about modern coin errors in American numismatic history. The Lincoln 1-cent coin was transitioning from a primarily copper composition to a zinc core. It was supposed to be clean, organized, controlled. But something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint. A mistake slipped through. Not just any mistake, an error so rare, so desirable that collectors today aggressively compete for it like sharks sensing blood in the water. This is the 1982 Lincoln cent error, a coin that was never meant to exist in its final form. And yet it does. And the market has spoken loudly. One verified example has reached a staggering valuation of $765,000, and demand has not slowed. In fact, it's accelerating. Why? Because wealthy collectors understand something most people don't. True rarity isn't advertised. It hides in plain sight. Now let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced at it. Looked at it. Because most people treat pennies like background noise. They drop them, ignore them, leave them behind. And ironically, that's exactly why so many valuable ones still exist outside of collections. The greatest fortunes aren't always found. They're recognized. Here's where the story deepens. The 1982 penny error isn't famous because of age. It's famous because of impossibility. According to official mint records, certain versions of this coin should not exist at all. And yet, a small number escaped into circulation, defying documentation, defying expectations, and creating a modern legend. This is the kind of coin that makes professional graders pause. The kind that silences a room at auction. The kind that turns everyday Americans into sudden, very serious sellers. And before you think, well, that's nice, but I don't have that kind of luck, let me gently stop you right there. Luck has nothing to do with it. Awareness does. The difference between someone who cashes in and someone who misses out is knowledge and timing. And timing right now is critical. Because as more people wake up to the value of error coins, the window quietly begins to close. Let's talk fear for a moment. Not panic, precision fear. The fear of unknowingly giving away something life-changing. The fear of rolling a coin and dumping it into a bank machine without a second thought. The fear of discovering years later that the penny you spent on coffee could have paid off your home, your debts, and funded a lifestyle of freedom. Painful? Yes. Preventable? Absolutely. And yet, here's the excitement, the thrill, the part most people don't realize until it's too late. This isn't ancient history. This isn't locked away in museums. These coins are still being found, still being authenticated, still being sold. And every new discovery sends shockwaves through the collector market, driving prices higher. Scarcity doesn't decrease when demand rises, it explodes. Now let me reset your attention for a second with a simple question. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with far better odds than the actual lottery, would you throw it away? Of course not. And yet people do exactly that every single day with pennies. Funny, isn't it? The smallest denomination creates the biggest regret. As we move into the heart of this story, understand this. High-level collectors are not emotional buyers. They are calculated, strategic, and they are actively hunting for coins like the 1982 D Lincoln cent error because it represents something rare in any market: finite supply with growing global demand. That's not hype. That's economics. This coin has crossed into a different category altogether. It's no longer just currency. It's an asset, a portable, private, inflation-resistant store of wealth. And in uncertain economic times, that combination becomes irresistible to those who understand long-term value. Now here's where urgency quietly enters the room. The moment you recognize the potential of a coin like this, you also realize something unsettling. The more people who learn about it, the harder it becomes to find one undervalued. The early movers win. The late observers watch headlines and wish they'd acted sooner. And let's be clear, this is not about greed. This is about stewardship, about recognizing value where others see clutter, about transforming overlooked history into opportunity, about upgrading not just your financial position but your mindset. Wealth, after all, often comes to those willing to look twice where others never look at all as the story reaches its final act. Here's the truth most videos won't tell you. You don't need millions to start thinking like someone who has them. You need awareness, discernment, and the courage to take something small seriously. Because history has proven over and over again that fortunes are built not on what's obvious, but on what's ignored. So before you dismiss this as just a penny, pause, reflect, revisit that jar, that drawer, that old collection you inherited and never sorted through. Because somewhere in America, someone is about to discover that their financial future was hiding in plain sight all along. They told you it was just a penny. 1 cent, something you toss into a jar, drop between couch cushions, or ignore at the bottom of your pocket. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking 1992 Lincoln penny, stamped with a small D mint mark, has quietly rewritten financial history, and today commands attention at a staggering 6-figure level, with serious collectors circling values as high as $923,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a coin most Americans have unknowingly handled. Now here's the uncomfortable question. What if the next life-changing asset is already sitting in your home, and you just don't know how to recognize it? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the world of elite coin collecting, where microscopic details create massive wealth shifts. And today, we're stepping inside one of the most powerful modern coin stories in U.S. history, the 1992 D Lincoln 1 cent error. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you may never look at your spare change or your financial future the same way again. Act 1 begins in the early 1990s, a time when America was focused on growth, stability, and the promise of tomorrow. The Denver Mint was striking millions of pennies, machines running nonstop, precision assumed, perfection expected. But perfection, as history has proven, is where fortune sometimes cracks. In 1992, something extraordinary slipped through. A minting anomaly so subtle that it evaded quality control, yet so powerful that it would later redefine the value of a single cent. This wasn't a flashy mistake. No dramatic misprint screaming for attention. It was quiet, almost invisible. The kind of error only destiny notices. Here's where things get interesting and slightly terrifying. Because while millions of Americans spent these coins without a second thought, a tiny number of 1992 D pennies carried a rare die error that would later ignite collector demand at the highest levels. Coins that once bought nothing, now buy freedom. Coins that once jingled in a pocket, now open doors to generational wealth. If that doesn't make you want to check every jar in your house, I don't know what will. And yes, before you ask, people really have overlooked these for decades. Painful, isn't it? Act 2 is where the story accelerates, and this is where excitement takes over. When collectors finally identified the error, the market reacted instantly. Scarcity met obsession. Demand exploded. This wasn't just another collectible, it became a status piece. The kind of coin whispered about at high-end auctions, quietly negotiated behind closed doors, and fiercely guarded by those who understood what they were holding. The reported top-end market conversations now circle an eye-watering $923,000 valuation, a number that has turned heads across the numismatic world. Not because everyone can get it, but because a few already have. And here's the pattern interrupt. Ready? Imagine explaining to your friends that your retirement plan started with a penny. Not stocks, not crypto, not real estate, a penny. Sounds absurd until it isn't. Until you realize wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits for those sharp enough to notice. That's why serious collectors aren't laughing. They're searching, and they're paying aggressively. Fear now enters the picture, and it's the kind that motivates action. Because every year, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. Every year, more are authenticated, locked away, graded, and removed from circulation forever. Which means the window is closing. The longer you wait, the more expensive ignorance becomes. And here's the hard truth. Most people miss opportunities like this not because they aren't smart, but because they assume value must look valuable. History punishes that assumption every single time. Act 3 is where everything connects, and this is where you step into the story. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness, about seeing differently, about realizing that wealth often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone bold enough to question the obvious. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, forgotten jars, or rolls tucked away just in case, you are already closer to opportunity than you think. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny era is in high demand, and collectors aren't slowing down. They're becoming more selective, more aggressive, and more serious. This is how quiet wealth is built. Not overnight hype, not lottery dreams, but informed action, taken before the crowd catches on. The people who thrive financially are the ones who investigate instead of dismiss, who verify instead of assume, who understand that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest leverage. And yes, it may feel strange to believe that a penny could help fund a better lifestyle, greater security, and real freedom, but history has already proven it can. So before you move on, before you scroll away, before another year passes, ask yourself one final question. What if the difference between where you are now and where you want to be is already in your possession? Because in today's market, knowledge isn't just power, it's profit. And the 1992 D. Lincoln penny era isn't waiting forever. What if I told you that one of the most powerful financial opportunities of the last 3 decades might already be sitting in your home, hiding in plain sight, inside a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box of old change? Before you dismiss that thought, pause for just a second, because this is not hype, this is history. In 1995, millions of Americans used a simple Lincoln penny without realizing that a very small number of them would one day be worth more than luxury homes, retirement portfolios, and entire stock accounts combined. And here's the uncomfortable question no one likes to ask. What if you already spent one? Now, I know what you're thinking. A penny? Really? That tiny copper coin we barely bend down to pick up? That's exactly why this story matters, and exactly why most people miss it. History has a strange sense of humor. Sometimes it hides fortune behind the smallest objects. Sometimes wealth doesn't announce itself with gold bars and headlines. Sometimes it whispers. And the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is one of those whispers that turned into a roar. Today, verified error specimens of this penny have reached a current market valuation of up to $867,000. Let that number sink in. That's not lottery luck. That's not speculation. That's demand. That's collectors competing. And that's money moving fast. If you're someone who believes opportunity favors those who pay attention, you're exactly where you need to be right now. To understand why this coin is so powerful, you have to understand what went wrong, and why collectors crave what the system failed to control. In 1995, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia produced Lincoln cents without a mint mark, as expected. But during production, rare die errors occurred. Errors so subtle that only the trained eye would catch them, yet so dramatic that they changed the coin's destiny forever. These were not damaged coins. These were not mistakes from circulation. These were born different. And in the world of elite numismatics, born different is where value explodes. Collectors don't chase perfection alone. They chase rarity, story, and authenticity. The most valuable 1995 no-mint mark pennies show extraordinary error characteristics, misaligned dies, doubled features, off-center strikes, that slipped through quality control and into circulation. Think about that for a moment. These coins were never meant to survive. They were meant to be caught, destroyed, erased. Instead, A few escaped. And now they're hunted. Here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because every year, fewer of these coins exist. Some are lost. Some are damaged beyond recovery. Some sit unrecognized in collections where owners have no idea what they're holding. And as supply shrinks, demand doesn't slow, it intensifies. High-end collectors, private investors, and auction houses are actively searching for these coins right now. This isn't a future trend. This is a present-day reality. And the market doesn't wait for anyone to get around to it. Let's interrupt this moment with a little reality check. If someone handed you $867,000 in cash, would you ignore it because it looked small? Of course not. And yet people do exactly that every day with rare coins. Funny how the mind works, isn't it? We chase complicated investments and overlook the simple ones that already belong to us. What makes this coin especially powerful is its timing. We are living in a golden age of coin collecting. Wealth is shifting. Physical assets are back in demand. Tangible history is outperforming digital noise. And rare U.S. pennies, especially high-grade error coins, are commanding unprecedented attention. The 1995 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent sits right at the center of this storm. It is American, it is familiar, and it is extraordinarily scarce in its error form. That combination is electric. Now imagine this. You open an old box. Maybe it belonged to a parent or a grandparent. Maybe it's been with you for decades. You pour out a handful of pennies, expecting nothing, and suddenly, you're holding a coin that could rewrite your financial story. This is not fantasy. This has already happened to people who didn't think it was possible either. And here's the most important part. The market rewards those who act decisively, not eventually. Coins like this do not flood the market. They surface quietly, are authenticated quickly, and are absorbed by serious buyers who understand exactly what they're worth. When one appears, it creates urgency behind the scenes. Phones ring, offers escalate, competition heats up. Because everyone involved knows the same truth, another one might not appear for years. This is about more than money. This is about reclaiming overlooked value. About realizing that wealth doesn't always come from chasing something new, but from recognizing what already exists. The 1995 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is proof that attention creates opportunity. And opportunity, when acted upon, creates freedom. So here's the question that matters most, and it's one only you can answer. Will you be the person who hears this story and moves on, or the person who checks, verifies, and potentially changes everything? Because the difference between those two people is not luck. It's awareness. The next time you see a penny, don't rush past it. Look closer. History has a way of rewarding those who do. And if you're holding one of these rare error coins, understand this clearly. You're not holding spare change. You're holding leverage. You're holding demand. You're holding a piece of American history that the market is willing to pay nearly $1 million to own. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, inside a dusty drawer, an old coffee can, or a forgotten coin jar, there is a single penny. 1 cent barely noticed, often dismissed, and yet, this exact penny has sold for $971,000. Not a lottery ticket, not a stock gamble, a penny. And the most unsettling part? Millions of Americans have already touched it, spent it, or tossed it aside without realizing what they were holding. So before you scroll, before you assume this doesn't apply to you, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. What if the most valuable asset you've ever owned has already passed through your hands without you knowing? This is the story of the 1996 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most ordinary years in American history. No gold rush, no financial collapse, no national panic, just another year. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it hides in plain sight, and sometimes it waits for the right person to recognize it. Now let's be honest for a moment. If someone walked up to you today and offered you a penny, you'd probably laugh. Maybe you'd say, "What am I supposed to do with that?" Or worse, you'd let it roll under the couch. Funny how something so small can be ignored so easily, yet command nearly $1 million at auction. That contrast alone should make you pause, because serious money often shows up disguised as something ordinary. Back in 1996, the US Mint was producing billions of pennies at lightning speed. Machines ran non-stop. Human oversight was stretched thin. And when pressure meets mass production, mistakes happen. Tiny mistakes, invisible to the untrained eye. But in the world of elite coin collectors, these mistakes are not flaws. They are treasures. The 1996 D-penny became legendary because of rare minting errors so subtle that most people still don't know what to look for. Errors that slipped past inspectors. Errors that should never have existed. And once collectors realized how few survived, demand exploded. Here's where the fear sets in. Because many of these pennies were released directly into circulation. Grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, your change tray, your kid's piggy bank. Think about how many pennies passed through your hands in the late 90s. Think about how many you never looked at twice. It's not a comfortable thought, but it's a powerful one. Because unlike missed stock tips or failed investments, this opportunity didn't require risk. It only required awareness. Now let's shift gears, because this is where excitement takes over. The specific 1996 D Lincoln Cent with the rare error variety, when authenticated and preserved in high grade, has reached current market values as high as $971,000. That's not speculation. That's demand. That's competition among high-net-worth collectors who understand one simple truth. Rarity plus story equals value. And this coin has both. When one surfaces, serious buyers don't hesitate. They act fast, because opportunities like this don't repeat themselves. And here's a little humorous reality check. If pennies could talk, this one would probably say, "You ignored me for 25 years? Now look at me." Funny, right? But also humbling, because wealth doesn't always come dressed like wealth. Sometimes it looks like spare change. Act 2 of the story is where most people wake up. Because once you understand why the 1996 D-penny matters, you start seeing your old coins differently. That jar in the garage suddenly isn't clutter. It's inventory. That inherited coin collection isn't sentimental junk. It's potential leverage. This is the moment where curiosity becomes action, where passive interest turns into empowerment. And that's exactly where the market is right now. Collectors today are aggressively hunting for verified error pennies. Supply is shrinking. Demand is global. And once these coins are locked into private collections, they rarely re-enter the market. That creates urgency. Real urgency, not hype, because every year that passes, fewer opportunities remain. The window doesn't slam shut overnight, but it does narrow quietly. And let's address something important. This isn't about luck. This isn't gambling. This is about knowledge, about recognizing value before the crowd does. The people who profit from rare coins aren't guessing. They're prepared. They know what to look for. They know when to sell. And they know that timing matters just as much as rarity. Act 3 is where everything comes together. This is where the story becomes personal. Because the question is no longer whether the 1996 D-penny is valuable. The question is whether you are willing to look. Whether you're willing to take 10 minutes to examine what you already own. Whether you're willing to step into a market where ordinary Americans have transformed forgotten coins into life-changing capital. Imagine paying off debt with a coin you already had. Imagine funding retirement with something you once ignored. Imagine telling your family that a penny helped change your financial future. That's not fantasy. That's documented history repeating itself for those who act. And here's the final pattern interrupt. What if the reason you're watching this video right now isn't random? What if it's timing? Because wealth doesn't always come from earning more. Sometimes it comes from recognizing more. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny stands as a reminder that America's greatest opportunities are often hidden in its smallest details. And right now, the market is watching. Collectors are searching. And those who hesitate may only hear about the next $971,000 sale after it's too late. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies, before you assume someone else already found the good ones, take a second look. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often one decision away.